Anahata Ananda is the founder and owner of Shine Sedona, a spiritual and healing retreat center in Sedona, Arizona. She is a spiritual mastress, I would say, a wisdom keeper of various forms, and you'll hear this. She speaks, and we speak everything about psychology, plant medicines, philosophy, various forms of personal development, inner child work, the various topics that we cover that she has been delving into for multiple years. We met about 5 years ago, and boy, has she evolved since then. The most fascinating topic, in my opinion, today is when to say no to plant medicines, when it becomes a poison, and how to actually tell that you're going down this path. Enjoy this episode with Anahata.
Let's have some fun.
All right. So we just started there with a prayer. And a lot of this became very real to me during 2019, to really embrace the world that cannot be seen. And it was especially during a breath workshop that you hosted. And for the first time, I encountered, one can say, my spiritual animal. And it was a panther. And I was running alongside this panther on all four up Thunder Mountain, which incredible mountain. I've been told has the most crystals in the entire world out of any place, and it's a vortex. And what happened is the panther roared at me, growled at me. Now I wasn't afraid. And then I jumped on its back as we're running up this mountain. And it finished with me merging with this panther. I became the panther. And on top of that mountain, there was thunder striking down, or lightning striking. There was thunder. And I was just roaring. But then I peacefully laid down. And the message of it was, don't fuck with me. But also, I can be very approachable if done with love and care. And now, several years later, that has been really an initiation for me to really take back my power. And I'm leading with that because I think that encompasses so much of what you bring out of people. And this was done with calling in spirits, so using drums, using breath work. And there's a lot more that I don't think I know to you. And I'm going to open the floor by just sharing that. And I'm curious to what comes up when you hear this. And yeah.
First of all, Sebastian, I want to acknowledge you for moving outside your comfort zone to try experiences and being open to connecting to the spirit realm, to the wisdom teachers of animals, to the wisdom teachers of mountain and lightning and crystals. Like, there's this whole other world that we have access to for support, strength, encouragement, inspiration, embodiment, guidance. And this is part of the awakening journey and the awakening process, where we open these channels of the third eye and the crown, the pineal and the pituitary glands, so that we can begin to have access to these other resources, allies, guides that are really just here to help you navigate this challenging, often confusing, scary, hurtful at times human experience. Beautiful, passionate human experience is that we don't have to do it all alone, and that there are guides and teachers and allies in various forms that can help us on the journey. And you know what? Like, I'm just up for whatever whatever support is available to me. Like, hey, help a sister out, help a brother out. Like, I've come to accept that support at times when I have felt overwhelmed, lost, like wanting to give up. alone, afraid, uncertain. And I've found that those allies have made the difference between whether or not I get up and keep going, or which direction to go, or to have courage and faith override the fear programs that are like wrestling and that I'm attacking with, being attacked by. And so I think that this is a beautiful thing to open. And when you're on your personal journey of awakening, the third eye, the bigger perspective, the divine connection is going to be part of your journey somehow. And it might look like an animal journey. It might be looking like connecting to a tree or an angel or an ascended master or an ancestor. And it doesn't have to look the same for each of us. In fact, that's the beauty of it, is that we get to have access to that in whatever way is authentic to us. And there's no right way, there's no wrong way, there's your way. And I just want to acknowledge your willingness to be open. And then when you are open, look at the insight that comes. You get to have this embodiment of the jaguar, of the puma, because at times you're going to need that to be able to access that strength, that patience that is the stalker, that is the puma, that is not afraid and will be and can be fierce when needed. And that's going to be necessary at times on the journey. And to be able to not fear that strength, but actually become it. To be able to work with lightning and thunder instead of be shattered by it, but to be charged up by it, like Thunder Mountain is every year. The crystals in that mountain, instead of that mountain which is hit by lightning more than any place in the continental United States, instead of that lightning cracking the mountain, it charges up the crystals and the minerals inside of it, making it stronger. And it's like, wow, what a resource to be able to access when you're just allowing your field to open to guides or energies or spirit that, and I want to put this caveat here, only for your highest good, only what you're ready to integrate, and only what you need in this moment, so that we're not letting in something that is not for our highest good, not helpful in this moment, or that we're not quite ready for, so that we can actually integrate it and it can be beneficial. Because not all things are beneficial if we're not ready, or if it's not for us, or if it's not ours, or if it's not in the highest alignment. So we want to have that when we are opening our field. We also want to have that filter that says, for my highest good at this time. Playing those realms can be really, really beneficial, and also just provide some guidance along the way and some assistance, because damn, it's challenging here, man. Like, whatever help I can get, like, I will take it.
Yeah. It's so refreshing how you're speaking to this with such with a smile on your face. You're laughing, you're enthusiastic, you have gusto. Usually it can easily get very serious and very deep, but you're saying this like, thank you, like in a more of a casual way, like, of course, like, I'd take any help. Like you're saying, I'd take any help from a friend, but you're speaking to this, which for me, I try to access this so many times after that. I have not been able to. So what you were saying, and there are nuances of this, but we were saying the angels, their angels, and their ancestors, both of that came up to in that journey. So my grandmother and my deceased grandmother and my deceased uncle both came in as angels, flying with me, and then lay down, integrated in my body, saying, "We are you," but in German, as I'm half German, "Wir sind dir." And nothing of that nature, nothing that has been that from a spirit animal perspective, but also from an ancestral perspective, I even been able close to be able to recreate in any sort of plant medicine journey, whether that be San Pedro, ayahuasca, hape, or anything, mushrooms. There's nothing that has come up in that way. There's a lot of childhood stuff. There's trauma, and there is subconscious, but not the way the spirit moved through me, and the spirit animals
Right.
ancestors. What do you think? Why do you think? What
Well,
happened?
right. So look, there's 7 different chakra energy centers. We're not here just to open this one.
Hmm.
When we open our third eye or our crown, it's to receive information to bring it down into our bodies to help heal, to help realign, to help manifest, to embody spirit, consciousness, love, creation in the physical realm. And there's a reason why sometimes there will be a cap or a limit of, oh, I want to go back and have that spiritual experience again. And it's like, well, actually, the next part of your medicine where you need healing is that inner child.
Hmm.
You need to go like in that second chakra where the emotional body, the pain and trauma of being a little boy, a little girl in this human experience is the medicine that is needed right now. The attention so that you can bring in more light and more truth. But if it doesn't have a space to land, then we don't need more of this information and truth. If what is in the way of bringing in more light and embodying it so that you can lead with that in your life, if the inner child's pain, sadness, anger, if we don't feel safe and supported in the literal 3D community, not in our spirit community, but in our 3D, like, how am I navigating like the earth experience, finances, relationships, emotions, sexuality, like career, safety, friendships, community? How am I doing down here? Now, this might not be as exciting or as sexy or as fun as like going out of the body and having a spiritual experience, but you're not here to just be spirit. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in a body.
Right.
You're here to be in a body.
Hmm.
And yes, it can get very addicted to like, oh, but this is so cool. Yeah, this is up here in the ether, in the air element. But we actually live here on earth. And so the idea is not to leave the body to connect with spirit, but actually the reverse, to make space, more space, and clear out the density, the misalignments, the not feeling safe, the insecurity, the pain that is in the way of us bringing more spirit, consciousness, love, truth into the physical body so that we can have healthier relationships. We can manifest more light, truth, and love in our 3D existence with what we are creating, that we bring those frequencies down and in, and not like, oh, God, it kind of sucks to deal with my core wounds and like having uncomfortable conversations with my relatives or a partner. I'd much rather be up here with the puma, and hanging out with grandma because she's really sweet.
Yeah.
And they're not challenging me, they're not betraying me, they're not judging me. So could I just hang up here? And it's a very easy place where avoidance happens because it's just like, wow, this is cool. And I get that. One of the times when I went to Egypt, I was so excited to go into the king's chamber and the pyramids of Egypt, and this was many, many years ago, and there wasn't as much security there. And sure enough, as soon as we got in there, security left, and we had the king's chamber all to ourselves. And I know what a portal to spirit that is. I know what a portal that is to higher consciousness and the star relations and the galactic realms. I'm like, ooh, yeah, let's go. As soon as I got into that chamber, I'm dropping into meditation. I'm ready for my freaking like launch, like, let's go.
Yeah.
And spirit just like put literally a lid on my head and was like, no. I was like, like, what the fuck? Like, come on, I'm ready. Like, I've spent all of this time to get here to have this out of body experience so I can experience my galactivated self. And instead, Spirit's like, no, you already can connect to that. The puma is already inside you. You are the puma. Grandma said, uncle said, we are you. We are not separate than you. You don't have to go out of your body to meet us. We're right here. And so Spirit was like, no, you don't get to go anywhere. And so I threw my little tantrum and I'm like, ah. And it's not about leaving the body, the consciousness said. It's about bringing this into the body. How can you make more space for this 5D in your 3D body? How can you have more love that you have experienced from this realm before? You have experienced your grandmother's unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
your uncle's support and guidance and wisdom. Like, how can you bring it down and then send it out through your heart, through your voice, through your eyes? And instead of being an exercise of leaving the body, it was an exercise of like channeling the light in and then sharing it out with the eyes, with the heart, with the voice, with the truth. And it was like, oh, that's a whole nother gateway of embodiment and power that I can experience and I can channel and I can embody. And it was a totally different experience than I expected, but it was also what I needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's something, we can want to be up here, but this is just for guidance, inspiration, truth, support, and clarity, so that you can move it down into the lower energy centers. How do I show up? How do I lead? How do I communicate? How do I love with greater refinement? How do I lead with integrity? How do I shine more light and love and consciousness and compassion into the universe so that I am the medicine?
Yeah.
Not I reach for the medicine, but I become the medicine. And I was like, okay, all right, I would have to sit with that for a little bit. And it's stretching me to actually get more into the lower energy centers, because this is already open. This is already open for you. It's not going to be where you're going to have your growth. It's going to be where you do the inner work in the lower dense energy centers that allows you to bring in and embody and convey more light that is going to create more acceleration and growth for you as a human in this physical 3D human experience, but bringing more of that consciousness into it. And that, like, it's doing the work for sure.
That was amazing. You just knocked that out of the park. Like, that was wow, spot on. That has been the journey that you just summarized, that I've been on in the last few years. Is, yes, it's amazing to have that connection to source and everything in the ethers, but is that where the work is? The work, clearly, as you're stating, which I'm being led back to, how do you honor the 3D things, your body, your relationships, your finances? Accountability is massive. And that's such a big thing. And I'm going to use that as a segue into what I spoke to earlier. Spirituality and plant medicine is becoming very enmeshed. And with that, what you're speaking of right now, you made a distinction in the journey where I was in with you. There was no plant medicine. Everything was experienced through breath, through what you called in, the facilitators, the space, the area. Incredibly powerful. And there are many people who were part of that, who were avid, you can say, they were doing regular journeys to connect with spirit and healing through plant medicines. And many said, I can't believe I experienced that without taking anything. And that is a reminder, a very stark reminder, and a stark message I want to deliver here too, which I feel like that you're embodying, is if you're truly honest with yourself, and if you honor yourself enough, you will start to recognize that connecting to the ethers, everything outside of you, is actually letting go of what's really important right here, right now. Many times that is yourself.
At different times, different things. Anything can become a medicine or a poison, depending on if it's the right thing, the right time, the right dose, the right tool or resources that is going to help to bring me into internal alignment. And so it's not that meditation or plant medicines or breath work is right or wrong or good or bad within itself. It is only as it is in relation to where am I on my journey and what do my energy centers need for my path, for my healing, embodiment, internal alignment at this time, which changes as you grow. And so sometimes what might need to happen is physical body detox, and it has nothing to do with spirit, but it has everything to do with, wow, my physical body is toxic, that it's actually clogging my channels for higher awareness, or the toxicity is creating irritation in my and pain, and so I'm irritated and I'm grumpy and I'm crabby and I'm like my organs aren't functioning well. And so a certain time, like detox, cleansing, fasting might be the medicine, and has nothing to do with a plant, has nothing to do with meditation or spirit or grandma or an animal. It's like, wow, I am out of alignment with my physical body toxicity. And that might be where the medicine is. And one can go too far with that, where it becomes a poison. And, you know, at times we might need to go into that inner child when we're ready and when it's time to be able to say, okay, now I have the tools, I have the maturity, I have the readiness, I have the support system to actually do the inner child work. And we do have a guided visualization for you, those listening or watching, because you had mentioned, hey, there were some inner child wounds that, you know, were coming to your attention, that were rising. That is no less, the inner child is no less valuable or beautiful or necessary of a guide than an animal or a mountain or an angel or an ancestor. It is just as important that your inner child come forward and be your guide at this point, that says, hey, I got neglected, I got hurt, and it never got healed. I feel alone, I feel afraid, I haven't played in a long time, so I feel like life isn't fun anymore. And all of that information coming from your very wise and intelligent inner child is just as important as any spirit guide. And it is part of you. It's part of your history. It's also connected to your emotions and your play and your joy. So if in this rainbow that we're talking about, it's not just about consciousness, it's also about that second chakra, which is where in the human experience we experience joy and passion and play. And that's just important down here, is not just service or spirituality or love, but also the frequency of play and joy and laughter and being in a healthy relationship with the medicine teacher that is our emotional body. And that is a great spiritual teacher, your emotions. They only rise when they have something to share with you. They only rise when they have something that is needing your attention. And like, I didn't understand that. I used to fear my anger, and I used to fear my dad's anger for sure, because it translated into not safety. And yet, if we understand our emotions, anger or resentment, when not listened to as the spirit guide that it is, will turn to rage. And if it's not attended to, will come to the poison of either self-destruction or destruction, physically, emotional, or energetically, towards others outside of ourselves. And that is an incredible spirit teacher, your emotions. And because we've been trained as children and young adults to oppress one's emotions, and for men a lot, don't cry, don't feel, don't talk about it. For women, don't raise your voice, don't get angry. And yet these are important medicine teachers, that when resentment is rising, or grief is rising, or sadness is rising, or rage is rising, it's connected to something that needs attention. Something's out of alignment, something's wounded, something's out of balance, And the medicine teacher that are your emotions are just trying to communicate to you. And if we're programmed or taught, oppress, ignore, shut up, it's not important, then that medicine teacher has to get louder and more destructive. So if sadness is not addressed, it turns to depression. If anger is not addressed, it turns to rage. And then what is correlated to that is a lot of addictions, a lot of infidelity, a lot of decisions that staying in situations that are unhealthy for us. And it creates a whole slew of secondary and tertiary chaos, painful, problematic, that we're creating here, down here in the 3D, in our relationships, in our health, and in our physical body, and in our emotional body, that create a whole other ripple effect of poisons that of course we're going to want to avoid. And instead, can I just go up and be in the spirit realm and not deal with this shit? Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that avoidance is in fact a poison, because there isn't this willingness to embrace the emotional body or the physical pain as the medicine teacher and spirit guide that it is, because it's highly intelligent and it's trying to get your attention, just as angels are trying to get your attention at different times. It's no less valuable, in fact, more often ignored and not as glorified as an angel or ascended master or an animal spirit guide. That our emotions or our inner child is just as important to be on our spiritual council.
Just letting that sink in, because that's profound right there. Especially, I mean, having met and worked with quite a few different spiritually, you can say, adept people, masters, one can say, of their trades, shamans, so forth. And this is so refreshing that you're just bringing it back to the answers are not in the mystical. It's actually right. Sometimes, but
they're to be applied in the mundane and in the everyday. They're an answer to a 3D problem.
Right. And it's so easy to negate the regular, like, oh, well, I have to drop off my children to school, or I have to start work at this certain time, or I have to go to this meeting. Well, that can be as spiritual too, depending on how you sit with what's coming up, instead of looking at your phone or your text messages or surfing another browser as you're doing on the phone call, or as you're dropping your daughter off, or thinking about what you're going to do next. But what if you're actually present?
That's the medicine. And boy, it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
And that's the classroom. That's the classroom. And to be present with whatever classroom is creating the teacher or the lesson for you, especially when the patterns keep repeating. Oh, I keep having this experience with partners that are emotionally unavailable, or bosses that are rude or disrespectful, or people that don't quite see me. And it keeps coming up because it's trying to get me to shift my perspective, make a different choice, see myself in a different way. And those are all medicine teachers. Your repeat patterns are, they're your classroom. And they may maybe not be as sexy, and as trendy as going for a plant medicine ceremony, and at different times, different things, because I've had experiences that have absolutely awakened my consciousness. And, then having that experience when I was in the jungle decades ago now, I guess, almost 16, 17 years ago with Aya, and I sat in the jungle with my hands on the vine saying, grandmother, I'm leaving you now. I'm leaving the jungle now. Is there anything else you want me to know? And she's like, well, we're connected. Just ask me if you have a question. Just ask me.
Yeah.
We're connected now. If you have a question, just ask me. And you are not to ingest me again. I'm like, but we just met. And she's like, listen, our role with you ingesting me is complete. And I was shocked because this was my first time down in the jungle.
Yeah.
And she goes, you get me, you understand me. However, our work is not complete. And it was really cryptic and I didn't quite understand it until she started sending me case after case after case after case that were abusing her medicine where it was becoming a poison because they needed integration, not another ceremony. And or the container or the facilitator was not in integrity, so there was debris or residue or energies that they were taking on that wasn't there. Remember, I did that qualifier at the beginning that wasn't theirs, where the facilitator did not know how to hold the energy to keep other entities from entering participants. So unskilled facilitators, not the right space, not the right time, not the right medicine, well, then you're going to be left with a poison. And it's different when you take on a substance that has such mind-altering power. If it's not in alignment for you, if it's not in your highest and best good, it's a little different than drinking too much tequila, because your liver can recover in 48 hours, but your brain chemistry cannot. And so there was psychosis and seizures and paranoia, where it took a long time to help people clean up from the poison of overdosing or not waiting for the right time, pushing, forcing, or not being in integrity of discerning about who do I trust to actually facilitate this? Is this an integrous facilitator? And believe me, not all of them are. And Aya sends people over and over and over again to me to do cleanup work after these kinds of experiences. And so she's showing me where it's being abused in ways in which aren't necessarily a medicine. It's not that the ayahuasca isn't a medicine, it's how it's being misappropriated that is creating poison or destruction, because it's not in integrity. You know, just like a glass of wine can be a medicine or a poison depending the situation and who's ingesting it. It's not that wine is good or bad, or that anything is good or bad. It's just, does it leave me more whole? Then it's a medicine. Does it leave me less whole? Then it's a poison. Pretty straightforward. And meditation can be a place of avoiding everyday responsibilities. I mean, you know, like, and you know, celibacy can be a place of avoiding getting your heart broken again. Like, anything can be a medicine or poison. It just depends. And so one of the things Aya was showing me, and many shamanic teachers are showing me, this orientation to medicine or poison, and to be aware of that inner listening. Is this what I need to leave me more whole right now?
This is gaining popularity rapidly, and as there are many studies and maps trying to get it legalized and so forth, and many different movements, and it's doing a lot of good in this world.
Absolutely.
And with your saying, there is the flip side of this, as this is so new. There is no formal process of becoming a facilitator. You can be self-proclaimed, and all of a sudden you're a shaman, and all of a sudden you have gatherings, and you have no clue what you're doing, but hey, it seems like a fun way of making a living. And I don't know if I'm fortunate, but I've come across several people like this, and I'm sure you have too. Well, as you said, you've cleaned up a lot of these things. As we're speaking to right now, like, I can relate to a lot of it, and the escapism, and I think it's a generational thing, and a kind of as in the zeitgeist that we're trying to use it as another way of escaping a dopamine hit, or a way of leveling up, or showing that we're doing more than everyone else. As this is becoming more widespread, what would you suggest as a guide for knowing if you should engage or not? And
good question.
Yeah.
I did a podcast on this because Aya was like, hey, our work is not done. And then I realized Oh, she wants me to be a whistleblower. Thanks.
Mm.
So here's what I did a podcast on this, and I would say these 5 things, ask these 5 questions before engaging in anything, because it could be like breath work, meditation, this retreat, this training. Asking, one, am I called? Not, is everybody else called and I'm just experiencing FOMO, fear of missing out. And so, am I actually called to this? Not, am I curious about it? Not everybody's talking about it. That's very different than a soul calling. Am I called? Has this experience called me? Not if it's knocked on the door 100 times. That doesn't mean it's calling you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a lot of opportunities. Hey, and I have lots of opportunities now. Hey, do this, invite me here to come here, do this. And like, I am not called in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have to answer that for myself. That's not a collective answer. So question 1, am I called? 2, is it the right time? Because I might be called, but it might not be the right time. And is this the right facilitator? As you mentioned, there's a lot of people that are, maybe throwing on a poncho and lighting Palo Santo and saying, yeah, I'm a facilitator. And so you really have to, very, very important, do the due diligence about any facilitator, because some are drug dealers that'll just take your money. And I've done cleanup work where the facilitator is actually leaving in the middle of ceremony, or inappropriate substances in there that are creating a lapse of memory where there's been inappropriate behavior sexually, energetically during ceremony. So let's be super clear. Be in integrity to do your due diligence to see, is this facilitator highly recommended? Do they have references? Are they fully grounded? And when you read their energy, do you get any like, I don't know? Or is it, I absolutely trust this person? And this is not something that anybody else, their due diligence isn't a reference, because some people can say, oh, they're super amazing. But that doesn't mean your inner knowing is giving it a thumbs up, green light. So is it the right facilitator? And I had lots of people saying, hey, this is the best person ever. And I'm like, not for me. No way would I sit with this person. So is it the right person? Also, is it the right group of people? Because, knowing when you're in a place where you're going to be leaving your body, guess what? All of their stuff is going to be exiting their body at the same time. And so I was like, do I actually want to be journeying with these other people? And I was like, ooh, I don't want to be sharing the space with certain people's stuff. Like, no. And I can wait. And the 5th thing is this a right environment? Not all environments are cohesively held in clear energetic spaces. Somebody did a retreat here a few months back, and the facilitator was not trained, did not know how to hold the space, did not clear the space. Half of the people during the ceremony completely went sideways, and they didn't know how to bring it back, clear it, anchor it. So it was some Airbnb that was not a sacred place with clear energy. It was not a facilitator that was actually skilled in protecting your energy field. Yeah. Because literally when you're doing any kind of psychedelic experiences, you're leaving your body. And if you aren't entrusting it to somebody else to be the gatekeeper and the protector that is skilled to keep your energy field clear, because you're not capable of doing that because you're out of your body, you're literally handling that responsibility to somebody else. And so take the time to vet, is it the right time? Is it the right dose? Is it the right facilitator? Am I called? Is it the right group of people? Is it the right venue? And if any of those are a no, it's a no. Until you get all those 5 yeses, then it's likely going to be a poison that leaves residue. So that's what I said in that podcast is like, hey, It could be a medicine or a poison. Here's a couple questions to help you decide.
Mm-hmm. You've touched on many powerful topics right now, and you've evolved so much since I saw you last. So what is present in your life right now? What has been alive the last few years, and what is important to you now?
You know, the teacher that's been showing up for the last 5 years, mountain, root chakra, stability, community, physical health, finances, integrity, like just here. I'm not like, I have been told, like, it's not any, there's no other teacher right now. And things move slow in the earth element. And that's why it's been my teacher for 5 years. And I have a lot more to learn about embodiment, integrity, groundedness, stability, embodiment. And so right now, that's it. That's all I'm to sit with, just to sit with the mountain. I'll hike mountains. I sit at the base of mountain. I have a mochila that has mountain visualizations on it that I was gifted from the Colombian elders there.
And a mochila, you gotta explain what that is.
A mochila is a Colombian medicine bag that represents the womb and what you're here to birth. And it's the feminine intuition. And each mochila will have designs of different medicines, of different plants, or different teachers kind of woven in to the mochila by the women. And they can feel who that mochila is being woven for and what medicine they need. And so I received this gift of a mochila with the mountain on it. And like, I don't need any more right now. Like, it is working deeply. Finances, stability, health, and I have so much to do here. I'm in no rush. And I'm been very clearly communicated. No sweat lodge, no plant medicine, no other shamanic teachers or healers or training. This is it. This is all you need. Keep going after this. Keep building a strong foundation. And it's really like deep, and the family bloodline and like physicality, and it's finances, like all the way into the matrix, because I opened up the center since I saw you here in Sedona. I've opened up a center. And in the middle of COVID, Spirit's like, yeah, open a brick and mortar. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm not going to hear that. No. But it was a soul calling. And I'm like, look, I'm trying to get out of the matrix, man. Like, I'm not interested in getting more into that. Yeah. But that's mountain, isn't it? And that's my teacher. How can you be even more in the matrix, but still hold the light? I'm like, no, don't want to, don't like it. Yep. But look at my face. It's like, yeah, but that's where I need to go. That's where my soul growth is coming from. Because I'm dealing right now in the 3D with payroll and workers' comp and legal agreements and contracts and finances and budgeting. And it's like, ew, I don't like that. And it's like, well, that's my teacher. Yeah. How can I bring grace and presence and resilience to building a light center in today's economy in the 3D and brick and mortar form? Like, there's no more 3D than that. And so I'm like daily staffing issues, budgeting, but that's what's growing my strength as mountains, so that I can build something that will be here long after I'm gone. Yeah. These mountains here, that mountain that you were talking about, it's a couple 100 million years old. It's not a little plant that's going to come and go and going to be washed away with this next monsoon. Right. These mountains are so stable and so grounded, they'll last for millions, hundreds of millions of years. I'm like, okay, great teacher, how can I build a foundation of something that will last and weather the storms long after my bones are dust? So that's the legacy that I'm building right now of creating a light center and structure and systems in the 3D that will, and teachings and healing energies and processes that I'm teaching to other light workers and modalities that I'm teaching and healing energy that I'm passing on to different people that I do one-on-one work with, or the staff that I'm working with, or people that are coming to different immersions and trainings and retreats. How can I pass on insight and guidance that they go and create something with? And it's like, I'm building this. Doesn't happen slow, which my Aries fire, let's get this shit done now, is really bumping up against. How can I take it slow? Like face each challenge with as much grace as I can muster, which sometimes is very little, if any. Because sometimes I'm like just throwing a tantrum, like, damn it. And I laugh, Sebastian, because like, this is it. This is the medicine. This is the classroom. I'm all in it. And I've never felt more nourished by my soul than ever. I'm in alignment with my soul mission. I'm doing what I came here to do. It's not easy, but it's so rewarding and it's so fulfilling and challenges me and stretches me every day. We just finished this beautiful men's retreat and I'm like, oh, like the tenderness, the courage, the vulnerability, the spark that came alive in each of these men as they step into their leadership and finding their truth and their dignity and their self-respect. Again, it's beautiful. And then just a few weeks before that, a women's retreat where women are finding their voice, their authenticity, their beauty, not as it is validated or outsourced by somebody else's opinion. And it's like, oh, there's so much freedom and growth. And I get to celebrate those breakthroughs because I've had a part in that. So the soul currency bank account is filling up. It's overflowing. So now it's like, how do I translate that into the 3D? Like, okay, like just keep doing one step at a time. You know, very different medicine than being in the jungle having a journey. It's just I'm on it's just a different part of my path right now. Nothing's better or worse or right or wrong, but it's stretching me for sure.
So is that the brick and mortar then? Is that, do I
The
understand?
brick and mortar is like a physical 3,200 square foot structure is different than when you're building an online workshop.
Yes.
It's a physical building that has lease payments and insurance. It's a brick and mortar. It's a physical building. So it's as 3D as you get to like be shackled to like, I can't just walk away and close up shop. There's lease payments due. There's like insurance due. So it's like, okay, stay with it. Stay with it. I can't just run away. And I've set this up. I see how my soul has set it up so that I wouldn't just quit or run away. And kind of like what you were saying about, you know, the experiences of taking care of a child. Yeah, you can't just quit that. They need you to like get it together. And they're relying on you for their safety, for their food, for their you know, roof over their head and for their guidance. And like they need you to show up. So being a parent also is a fantastic training ground to like be present with what is, which might be staying up at 3 a.m. with a kiddo that has a toothache.
Yeah. There is, with spirituality growing in the West, it's becoming, one can say, I had this conversation with my wife today that it's about doing yoga and meditating and listening to your inner child and listening to your intuition and intuitive eating and listening to your body. And a lot of that I followed, but with this, the flip side of that is I'm just doing what I want to. My responsibilities are going out the door and I just do what I absolutely have to. And I'm trying to tap in so much all the time that I get lost in what do I need to do? What are my responsibilities for work, for my family, for my friends, and just like, oh, what do I feel like doing? Because that is what supposedly is spiritual. And that's what you're touching upon right now is yes, there is that. But what is the mountain energy too?
Yeah.
The mountain doesn't do what just it feels like doing. The mountain is the mountain, and seasons come and seasons go, and it still knows who it is, deeply rooted, deeply grounded, regardless of the storm, regardless of the people, the animals, the environment, the weather. It doesn't matter. And that's what I'm coming back to, is knowing who you are, and so unwavering in certain, one can say, in your commitments, in your values, and knowing what they are, and then on opening yourself up to spirit, to the extraterrestrial and all the magical things and the mystical that there is in this world.
Just when you were saying that, lightning, thunder. At different times, different things. There's a time to be still and quiet and separate from community so that you can connect into what do I need, and also what does my family need, what does my child need, what does my career need, and that there's a time for that listening, and there's also time for action. And so if we look at the medicine wheel, and there's different versions of the medicine wheel, and studying shamanism, the first thing I asked, well, what's the way? What's the right medicine wheel? And it's like saying, well, what's the one word for God? It's like there's many terms for God.
Yeah.
Then there's not one. And so even within the shamanic teachings, there are many versions of medicine. Well, here's one where the West is about letting go and surrender and healing. And sometimes when we have been avoiding that part of the wheel, later in life, we might need to play catch up because our inner child, or the breakup, or the death of that pet or family member, loved one, never got processed. So our wheel got a little out of balance for a while. And so we might need to spend some time in the West releasing and healing. But we're not meant to stay there forever. And sometimes we need to connect into the North for divine guidance and insight and perspective. But it's not a place to live. It's a place to recenter, like the winter season. It's a place to hibernate, not to live inside the hibernation of just your covers and your pillow and your comforter. But it's a place to reset and then rebirth. So it's a great place for insight and perspective and rest and rejuvenation and clarity about what to do in the East, of what action to take, and what seeds am I planting, and what am I choosing? What am I building? What am I growing? And if you don't weed the garden and receive divine inspiration, then a lot of times we'll spin our wheels, or we'll be taking action in a way that's not in alignment with our soul, or we'll burn out to overcompensate because we're in a career we don't love, trying to show everybody that we're enough. And there's burnout, and we have diminished harvest. And so there's a time for action. And there's also a time to be in the South and play and celebrate the harvest, because we don't want to always be in the East working, going, and doing. The fire element, although action is an important part, there's also time in the South where we get to be with community, and we play and we laugh and we vacation and we celebrate and we dance and we sing and we play games and we play music. And it's all of those things. And it's finding in that inner listening about where does my medicine wheel need to go to lean, to experience, to bring myself back to balance. And so it's an ongoing process, that inner listening. It's not just going to meditation is the only thing, because once you get that inspiration or that idea, then you got to go over and take action. And there's times where the physical body needs to be stretched. If it's been in the winter season and it's been stagnant, it might need some yoga. It might need some dance. It might be some need strengthening. And so that goes back to the inner listening, that's saying it is my responsibility only and always to check in with self to see, what do I need? And if I keep coming with anger and resentment or depression or addiction, then I probably have not dealt with something in the West, a wound or a weed in my soul garden, that in order for me to grow and find balance, I need to go over there and take care of it. And so this is not, hey, this is the answer to your challenge. This is this is a listening experience, so that you can then call forward what you need. And your wife's wheel might be going in a completely different direction. Mm-hmm. She might need the West when you need to take action. You might need to be play while she needs sovereignty, and to give each other space to find your own and listen to your own balance, knowing that it's not your responsibility to manage your partner's wheel or your child's wheel, that the imbalance is the classroom. Like, whoa, that was too far. I overdid the play. I drank too much, and I've been hedonistic, and I haven't been working in a while. Now I'm out of money. So right. So I think that's a listening. Does my body need yoga? Do I need quality playtime with family? Do I need to get some shit going with work? Or do I just need to step away from everybody and be quiet? Well, nobody can answer that for you. There's no one answer. That's going to be the practice of inner listening, to be like, what do I actually need? The answer might be, but I don't want that thing that I need. Yeah. So, I don't want to do that thing.
Here's an interesting question. The history repeats itself. We see this in for countries, for events, but also for ourselves. And I noticed, even looking at my work history, I noticed, usually after this 2-year mark, there's something that seems to be wanting to make a change. And I'm wondering, okay, well, what is this a pattern that I've created, and now I'm calling it faith, I'm calling it my soul calling, or it's just something I don't want to face what's uncomfortable? So my question pertains to how maybe you personally differentiate between what is it that you want, what is historically something you have done and now keeps repeating itself, and what is actually your soul calling, intuition.
Right. A soul calling is going to feel different. It's going to have a different frequency. It's going to excite you. It's going to light you up, but it's also going to scare you. It's going to be uncomfortable, because usually your soul journey, the next chapter of your soul journey, is going to take you into the unknown, places that you haven't been before. And you might have tools and experience that you will be able to bring with you on the journey of wow, I know how to budget, or I know how to time manage, or I know I have this particular level of mastery with this industry. And that may help going forward, or it'd be I'm going in a totally different direction. This 2 decades of industry experience is totally irrelevant. Yeah. Besides, I committed and I learned, and I am masterful because I put a lot of time and energy in. So there was a time I wasn't masterful at this, and that's how I got to be so skilled here. And so that might cross over, but you might be starting over with a new industry. And so if you're kind of getting in these cycles where 2 years I start losing interest, the question is that because this is just served its purpose, and there really isn't anything else for me to grow here? Is this in alignment with this next part of my journey? And I'd go back and look at, why did I choose this career in the first place? Was it because I just needed a job? Was it because my soul lit up, or it was just because it was available and a friend gave me the job and it was easy? Was it to please somebody? I like to look at the motivations of, how did I get here, so that I can, the history will keep repeating itself until you learn the lesson and make a different choice. Because there are some patterns where it's like, maybe I'm making this choice from misalignment and I just get bored after 2 years because this isn't my path, or it's been my path, but I've reached the capacity, it's served its purpose, kind of like a snake with its skin. It's like, I shed this skin because it doesn't fit me any longer, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I like to look at, am I bullshitting myself? Am I just bored? Or is this not even my thing, and it's not feeling in alignment because it served its purpose, or it was never even mine, and now I can't fake it any longer? And so that's going to be an inside question to be, because there's nothing wrong if your cycles of growth are in 2-year spurts, and it's like, now I'm meant to do something else, and it's not from a place of avoidance. And it absolutely could be, but that's an inside inquiry to be like, from what place am I choosing this? And when Shine came up, like, I was leading a wonderful, successful private healing practice.
Yeah.
I was happy with how things were, but there was this tug to open something to reach more people. And I kept feeling it, and I was trying to pretend like I didn't want to hear it, but it kept pulling at me in such a way, when I listened internally, my resistance was coming from fear, doubt, and lack. All of my reasons for no were coming from fear, doubt, or lack. Yeah. And I know that those aren't valid reasons for me to say no. And I knew that if I let those fear, doubt, or lack make decisions for me, that I would be having regret, that I would feel that unrealized potential of a path not taken that my soul was supposed to go down. And Spirit was like, look, when it comes to your soul journey, you don't get to say no from fear, doubt, or lack. We'll take care of that. We will take care of that. And I'm like, but, and here comes all the fear. But how? Okay. Just take the next 2 steps. And so I surrendered. I was like, I don't really want to let go of this thing. I like how it is. I don't want to make a change, but it just kept tugging me to move into this totally different, steep learning curves, things I'd never experienced and never done before, but all of this desire and passion and skill for 22 years of doing personal development and healing work and trauma work was a foundation that I wasn't starting from scratch. But there was a lot of running a business in a brick and mortar and systems and staffing that I was like, I'm not very good at this part. I don't know how to do a build out with construction. I've never done that before. And it's like, okay, back to what we were saying earlier, help a sister out, Spirit. Okay, bring the people, show me the way. And you've got to be humble enough, knowing that if you're going into new territory, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. So not to expect perfectionism, but to be resilient enough to say, wow, that did not work. Hiring that person was the worst decision ever, and it's a shitty freaking mess that now I've got to clean up. And it's like, okay, what am I learning from that? Back into 3D, like, ouch, that hurt financially, energetically, and for the business that left a big old mess now. Okay, what am I learning? What I'm going to do differently? And I will tell you right now, I am a really good hirer. I say no to so many people. I'm really good. I know the cost. I know the price when I don't listen to my intuition. And so one of the things that I'm in this classroom with is trusting intuition and honoring my integrity. that if something doesn't quite feel right, whether it's a system, a facilitator, somebody that might rent the space, or a potential staff person, if something doesn't quite feel right, it's not quite right. And do not doubt that. I have paid that price, that business school tuition, enough times to be like, okay, instead of the pattern repeating, because history will repeat until you learn the lesson,
Yep.
I'm going to say no when something doesn't feel right. And I don't care what other people say about it. They might think I'm picky or demanding or whatever. I don't care. If it feels right, it's my responsibility to honor that and to listen to it, because I pay the price. When I don't, they don't. So I've really leaned into that embodiment. That's been a root chakra thing that has created stability, because when I don't listen to my intuition and I don't honor my integrity, I create earthquakes that shake everything. And now it's not just for me. I've got to clean up all these messes. So I'm like, okay, I'm ready to learn this lesson, because I'm not interested in repeating it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. And so I'm right in the middle of like hella bunches of lessons. And some I get really quick, and some I will take longer. Some it'll take another round of chaos and pain and earthquakes and tsunamis before I'm like, okay, okay, I see what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I think I got it, but maybe not. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll be tested again real soon on this to see if I really got it, or if I'm going to default back to my old pattern. And it's creating, Sebastian, what is interesting that it's doing is all of this in the 3D, it's actually making me connect even more to faith and consciousness, so that when I have to stay in faith and high vibration, which are these upper frequencies that are like, okay, I'm trusting you, I'm surrendering. But that also means that I've got to do the work, and I've got to be in integrity. And so it's actually working on my spiritual centers in a different way, that I energize faith over fear, and that I stay centered, and that I am not the tsunami with my fear or worry or stress. And I'm like, I can't be making decisions from that place. That doesn't turn out well.
Yeah.
I laugh a lot because the human experience is really funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's a comedy. Let's be honest.
We've been, and again, I've been discussing this with my wife today too, and there's a lot of trauma that has come up over the last 2 years, and I've just started taking the approach of laughing at just what is actually coming up. Like, wow, like it's like, this is, you're actually about to do this. Like, that's actually funny, because it's so, I did not expect that, especially for you to say something of that nature. And instead of maybe being devastated or angry or upset, it's like, why not laugh? And in that way, it's a completely different perspective change on the entire situation. And thank you for embodying that and just being a beacon of the power of laughter. And it's just, it feels like, take things seriously, but not too seriously. We're here to learn and also enjoy and have fun.
And like, when there is a wound, show up and be present.
Yeah.
Like when I do shamanic breath work, which you experienced, and when I hold space for people's transformation, and it's one of my favorite things to do, because there's times where, and just this last men's retreat, there's times where just holding somebody in their pain and letting them weep in a safe space is what's needed, and it's not laughter. And other times there's so much oppression and so much anger from the betrayal, from the judgment, from the ridicule, from people that we trusted hurting us, that we have the right to be angry and rageful. And so holding space for that to come out, it's not humorous, and it's so liberating, and to hold a safe space that gives permission for somebody's rage, and that at the same time move to the next person that is finally free and like, yep, I'm finding myself. Yes, this is who I am. And they're in that celebration, and they're in that expansion space where they're no longer shackled by the pain or the anger or the rage or the depression. And they're like, oh, I get it. I'm feeling me. I'm celebrating. And other times where we just see the silliness of it and there is laughter. It's like, oh my God, I thought that they were the villain, and oh my God, they were the teacher.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I thought they hurt me, but they actually taught me something that is going to save my life, that is going to help me to step into my truth and know how to hold myself in the presence of resistance. Like, oh my gosh, I thought they were the villain, and actually at a soul level, they really care enough about teaching me this lesson of like, okay, thanks. Okay, I see what you did there. That's pretty funny. And at different times, humor, anger, sadness, joy, they're all different medicines at different times. And I in one ceremony, I'll work with all of those frequencies. And so it's given me the necessity to be able to have a wide range within which to hold space for what somebody needs support, because it's not all just rage or crying, because it might be laughter and celebration and or deep, beautiful inner peace. And when I'm training and facilitating people that are wanting to support people through their healing and their transformation, that's one of the things that I'm teaching is, one, how to hold space for somebody, but to read what do they need, and to expand one's toolkit and range so that you can go from tenderness to like strength to rage to yippee, and like be able to walk people home through their experience tailored in such a way that fits them. And that, to me, is what's different about shamanic breath work than a lot of other breathwork modalities, because a lot of times there's not tailored hands-on support that is absolutely tailored to what somebody needs in the moment. Deep, yeah.
There's one story I'm going to share, and then I have a question. We'll see how this goes. But speaking of laughter, there was a teacher of mine who had a friend pass away, and they were doing breath work. And it was in the middle of winter, and then they went into, they have cracked the ice and taken away a lot of the ice, and they were in, I don't know, waist deep, chest deep water, and they were doing full submergence. And everyone did that, and then when everyone came up, they realized someone's missing. And they quickly found out who was missing, and then the frantic panic started. And it ended up with a bunch of men frantically just destroying all the ice to find this man who had gone under. And one of the people who was very connected to this man who passed that day, it had been 2 years, and we were talking about this after a very connecting evening, and he made a joke about this man. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And he started laughing, and he was like, yeah, actually the greatest way of telling that you've healed is that you actually can make jokes and laugh about the situation. And for me, even though sharing this right now, it makes me a bit uneasy, because we're so conditioned to, especially as I was feeling this, it was a shock to me. Like, I'd never heard anything like this. I connect with ice baths. I connect with breath work, and then I have someone in my age pass away and have a 2-year-old daughter that's left behind. That's just heartbreaking. but also it gave me a very significant perspective change on what healing is and laughter actually can mean when you have someone who's a close friend to that person who passed away, that you can actually laugh at the situation. Because I've had people pass away and I think, oh, well, I'm going to be in this depressed state every time I talk to them for my entire life. That's what it is. Yeah.
You know, it depends,
Mm.
because laughter can absolutely be an avoidance technique to not deal with the pain or the situation or the trauma. It can absolutely, humor can be one of those bypassing tools to not deal with it. And if it is fully integrated, which it sounds like it wasn't in that moment, like you're still feeling like, I can't speak to that person, whether it was fully integrated or not, as to whether or not they could really authentically be in humor because they had processed and integrated and dealt with the experience. Because we experience it at different levels. We can experience it in the 3D of like, wow, ouch, that hurts. The daughter's left behind. This shouldn't have happened. And so we get to experience it on the human level: grief, panic, fear, blame. Like, these are normal processes of dealing with grief. And acceptance is one that comes after a while, and not everybody gets to acceptance.
Right.
Not everybody gets to acceptance. Grief is a process, and some of us get stuck in some of those stages along the way because we're not quite ready to really make peace with it, because we're still angry. This shouldn't have happened. And so we have the right to have our human feelings. And what is also happening at the soul level and at the spiritual level is that every soul chooses their exit plan. And so in my shamanic healing and also training and working with different modalities and teaching about death, dying, grieving, and conscious transitions, is also recognizing that every soul has their own journey, even if I have my opinion that it shouldn't have happened the way it happened.
Yep.
Because I have the right to have these things simultaneously. Like, that person should not have taken their own life.
Right.
And I can also, at a soul level and a higher level and through the higher perspective, saying, I respect that person's right to choose their own exit, because I might not understand that that is bringing awareness to suicide, teen suicide, in a high school that now has a program and a hotline to help teenagers through that. So that person that loved breath work and that loved ice baths might also have been showing, hey, careful, because this can be dangerous.
Yeah.
If these protocols are not in place, if we're not having these checks and balances and an extra safety rope,
Yep.
and a buddy system, somebody can get lost. And so I respect that at a soul level, this brother might have been bringing awareness to, yeah, breath work is amazing, cold exposure is amazing, and it can be unsafe if, and that's true. I mean, gun control laws get passed after a school shooting.
Right.
It's unfortunate that we have to go that far to have a wake-up call, but some of those souls and parents that have these great loss, and the souls that were just 6 years old, or a teacher, or might have said, hey, I'm coming here not to live a full life and go on to have grandchildren, but I'm coming here to bring awareness around this issue so that it can be addressed, to save other people from this as well. Yeah. And, one of my clients had a daughter drown at a pool. She was a year and a half old. She drowned at a pool at a house where all of these kids and adults were there, and somebody wasn't looking. And just like that, and I did the grief work with the family, and they happened to be a very public figure family. And I'm like, who else would be appropriate and have a platform than you guys to bring awareness about unnecessary childhood drowning. And these things could be put in place in your own home to keep this from happening from you. I go that the other family in Arkansas that doesn't have a large following, that is not in the public eye, is not going to be able to bring awareness to this issue. But because you can, yes, this soul chose you as parents to be a voice piece so that greater awareness, pool strategies, and safety things can now be brought to the mainstream. And that doesn't mean that their grief as a family wasn't needing to be addressed with. And when it was time, and not before, to start to see the bigger perspective of who would be better suited to bring awareness about this issue than you? Yeah. Who would be better suited to fund, pool safety, classes for infants and, security systems. And so death is one of those that we have a lot of our personal pain, which we need to grieve about, and to trust and know that each soul has the right to choose their exit plan, which we may not agree with or like. So we get to process our pain or our disappointment about it. But to really go to the full extent of the healing is to understand that perhaps there is a greater reason why this happened this way. Yeah. And it will help with the grief process. And I work with a lot of families and couples and individuals to help them through the grieving process when we can see the bigger perspective.
What are other ways that people can work with you, connect with you, and follow you?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Sedona. So if you are called to Sedona for healing, awakening, we have wellness retreats, men's retreats, goddess retreats, yoga retreats. We have all kinds of weekend immersions. And so if you want to have a multiple day group experience in the vortexes, with breath work and inspirational workshops, movement, then definitely check shinesedona.com. If you want to come and do your own personal retreat, that's private sessions with me or with other facilitators, plus group experiences like sound healing or breath work or land journeys, then you can come to Sedona and just have your own tailored experience or bring a group there. You might be a facilitator or an author or a coach that wants to bring a group to Sedona. Well, Shine is a great facility to host. If you are a light worker, teacher, or coach, and you are really like this conversation lights you up and you are called at a soul level to facilitate other people's healing and transformation and awakening, I take a small group of people twice a year on a 2-week immersion where I literally open up my medicine bag of tools, and it's a 14-day. You learn healing modalities and different ways trauma gets locked and unblocked in the body. You learn hands-on healing, emotional release techniques, guided visualization, sound healing, shamanic breath work. We go on the land. There's different shamanic wisdom teachings. It's super deep. So our next one is in July for 2 weeks, and then the next time it's offered is in winter. So if you are called to the healing arts and you really want to go deeper for you personally, but also for helping other people, that training is unparalleled. It's like nothing else out there. And I take a small group. It's not 40 people online for 2 days. I don't think you can go deep that short without hands-on experience, lots of practice, and lots of tools to learn and understand how deep it is to be in somebody's intimate trauma space, their soul space, their inner child space. So I hold that standard with very, very high integrity.
Yeah.
So those that are called may want to come and train with me. All of that information is on shinesedona.com. And you can follow me on the socials, Anahata Ananda, and also on Shine Sedona as well. So if this conversation lit you up and stirred something in you, then I imagine our paths will be crossing. I imagine it'll happen sooner than you think.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful for you tuning in this long. Please go get the free gift for sure about the guided visualization to heal your inner, connect and heal with your inner child. And I want to thank you, Sebastian, for just being on this journey, being vulnerable and transparent, and taking the time out of your busy, demanding life to be a truth teller and a wisdom seeker and a support for other people's healing and awakening. It's just, I'm so grateful, and thank you for stepping up and serving in this way for this community.
Thank you. It's been a true blessing having you here. And yeah, it's truly teachers like yourself. That's what inspires me. It's you're paving the path for others to come, and what I may see is something you may have seen too, and maybe not. And as we're helping each other, as we're guiding each other, this has been one of those.
Yeah.
Where I keep on getting surprised when we tap in, when we tune in. There is a message or a question I'm about to bring up, and I don't need any words. You're then speaking to it a few seconds after. So I deeply thank you for really showing up, Anahata. It was very special. Thank you.
My pleasure. And it really is. I love sharing about this. It's my dharma and my passion. And I'm just grateful to give people the tools that I wish I would have had when I was going through my dark night of the soul. And so grateful that free platforms like this exist. So
thank you for listening in today. You can find Anahata on social media, and the links are in the show notes. You can find a free breath workshop, just like she mentioned, and her July retreat coming up here, also in the show notes. If you have any feedback, I warmly welcome it. It makes the show better, and obviously it helps reach more people. So if you find this helpful, please give us 5 stars, a rating, a review. It would mean the world. I wish you a wonderful day, and thank you again for listening.